in today's video, we will be looking to create this pendant. Apologies in advance, it does get a little tricky in some places, not quite how they intended, so feel free to adapt the wires to suit and hopefully use this tutorial as a baseline.
Hi everyone, it's Nick from Freaking Twisted and back again with a new tutorial for a new piece. In today's video I have got this gorgeous Marquise shaped labradorite, nice and shiny there. And don't forget, you could use variations in sizes of these stones for the designs, just where you can adjust your wire lengths accordingly, but for the sake of this video, this stone measures just under 5 centimetres, not much. There we go, just so you can see, just under 5 from top to bottom. So that's our stone. I have prepared a fresh batch of harvested wire from old cables, hence these little bundles, so if you're wondering what that's all about, and the appropriate injuries acquired from doing that yesterday, so go careful if you do that. But today I've got a selection of the largest gauge here, which is 2mm, which is 12 AWG for the conversion. I have got 1.6mm, which is 14 AWG. I've got weaving wires of 0.4, 26 AWG, and 0.3, which is 28 AWG, beg your pardon. And I will also probably use 1mm at 18 AWG, and I think this is 0.7, 22 AWG. So I've got a nice selection of sizes there. I'll try to incorporate all of those as we go along. Tool wise, I've got flat nose pliers, which I find really handy for giving things a good tug if you need to. I've got bent nose pliers, chain nose, flush cutters, nylon jaws and bail making. They're usually my regular go-tos, and also we'll be doing some hammering. So I have got my trusty steel block, a sandbag and a hammer off to the side, which you will get to see little glimpses of as we go along. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we need to do for this design is make a frame, because it's sort of a cage style pendant, and we need a base wire to attach future components on, and build the piece as we go along. So for that, let's take the 2mm and we'll just grab a length of that. And this is where I use my nylon jaw pliers, my flat nose, to get this unravelled. Now, to work out how much we're going to need, generally what I do is I take my stone and I will roll it, take a centre point, roll the stone over to the side, so you want a nut to go up the side, generally about 3 centimetres for a bail and a little bit for a feature over the top. So if I grab my ruler, we'll take about 3 centimetres. This will be the length that will go up and over as we curve the bail over, and then it will leave us approximately 1, 2, 3, probably another 3 centimetres to play with on the other side. So that will take us to about 12. So we want to double that up to do the other side. So we want about 24. It's approximate, so don't get too focused on having it exactly right, because the chances are we'll probably trim some off anyway. So let's get this nice and straight and workable to start with. And of course, if you've got yours ready, prepared off of a spool, you'll be able to skip this stage, but otherwise just run them through your pliers and get it decent, ready to work. There we go. I want to do that a few times. Go careful because sometimes it can get a little bit warm. So what we'll do is we'll take myself much room here. Take your centre point of 12, so just about there, and a Sharpie does tend to come in handy. Mark that. So all we have to do now, I'll probably use the flat nose for this. Go next to your mark and just bend your wire in half. Now, I don't know if I'm, those of you that saw it last time, when you bend your wire using your pliers, you'll get a nice straight edge here, but it'll be slightly curved on the other side. So just nip in with your pliers, give that a little squeeze, and that'll get that nice and equal for you. Now take your stone, work out which way the flash shines best, and for me that's that way. So we're going to pop it in, and we'll start by holding it as best as you can and gently encourage that wire around on both sides. Now take your time on this bit, because at every stage, if you can get it as exact as you can, it'll look better at the end. Missing out on bits now will really show up later. So there we go. That was a little bit out of shape there. What I will do is just bring in the self-healing crafting mat, which is great for doing the symmetry part of things. So I think I'll work this way. Start bringing that wire in and spend a bit of time. As good as you can. It's starting to look okay. So I will just offer it up to the board. Start to see if there's any adjustments needed. And that's looking actually okay. Now, you can see at this stage there is about a 1mm gap around the outside of the stone, which is really great because we're going to need space to be able to bind on other components as we go, and as you hammer wire it will also stretch too. So just bring in my hammering gear now. There we go. Right, now tip on hammering, for those of you that haven't watched my previous video or done any hammering before, we just need to make sure that we have a hammer that has a slightly convex face to the striking edge. That stops you from getting your dents and your dings in your finished wire preparation. You can buy chasing hammers. This one is just a regular hammer from a hardware store. And it works great. So whatever you're comfortable with and what works best for yourself. So hold on to your wires as you start to strike, and strike with your hammer face parallel to your work. If you start to hold it at an angle as you're hammering, that's when you're also going to get extra features, shall we say, in your base wire. So let's start to prepare this and just gently tap as you go. If you start to hammer too hard, that's when you'll start to get distortion and make yourself more work by having to do corrections. Actually, one thing I have forgotten to do is straighten out these bail wires at the top before we go too far. So all we need to do, if I just move this to one side, let's get a bit ahead of myself there. If you want to come in and bring your jaws and your pliers just in at this point and bend against it. So bring that one up like that. actually been a while since I've made anything because our house has been so full of lurg. I haven't got anywhere near videoing. I'd hope to get another one up sooner than this, but here we are. There we go, I think that's okay. We'll just double check before we go back to hammering again. Yeah, happy with that. So let's go back to the hammering. There we go, mind your fingers. Turn it over as well. The purpose of the hammering is it turns your round wire into a nice rectangle, which gives you a great surface to bind your components on. You can bind onto the wire in its normal shape as being cylindrical, but you will find there's a bit of a risk of components spinning and not attaching quite so firmly. If you do get little marks as you go, you can just gently go over them with a hammer and you will start to almost iron out your component. There we go, stop and have a little check. See if both sides have as much work done to them. It should be good. Right. Take this gear to the side again. There we are. Right. Sometimes you get a little bit of distortion like this, so just tease it back into place. Put it where you need it. There we go. Right, now see, now that we have hammered, we've created ourselves more space in the frame around the outside there. See that we've got a nice lovely gap there to be able to add components on as we build, which is great. So now the next job is to decide what we'd like to do with these bail wires in the top. Start off by making sure that they're the same length, which they aren't here. Don't have to, but it's just a little bit, sometimes a bit distracting. And it's best that or easier should I say, I find, if we design this now and hammer them out before folding over, because it's all nice and flat, easy to work with. So for this, what I usually do is take the frame and offer it up this way, and then you can start to see how you might want to design these. So for this one, what I usually always start to do is, well, mark out the 3 centimeters. This board has 3 centimeter marks, so we'll go up to about here. And that will leave us this much here to work with, which will probably be about right, because this will be bound for the bail. So we've got this much here left, and we'll just see how much that is. About 3 centimeters, just over. Flare them out, do something fancy. Okay, so actually I think we'll bind the bail first. This is where we'll bring in our 0.5 24 gauge. You could do it after designing the arms that come down the front, or you can do it now. It doesn't really make much difference. Go now, it'd be nice and secure. So start by winding it on. You want to keep it nice and flat and squidged down as you go. That side. I'm going to use my flat nose for this. And just give it a nice little nudge down. There we are. So it's down at the base here. And you can wind straight from the spool. You don't need to measure out a set amount. And we will just take it up to that little mark we've made with our Sharpie. And squash and a squeeze. And again. That's there. Oops. And if you wanted to, you don't have to do just a straight bind like this. You could do alternate wires as you go up, just to give it an extra bit of interest. A couple more rounds and I think we're done. There we go. Right, we want to finish this on the same side, so I've come over the top here. I'll just trim that. And we want it, and you don't have to, but I do like to just give it a couple of taps with a hammer. So I'll just bring this over here. Flattens everything down nicely. There we go. And then we can just trim this down. So it's on the inside, so as we fold the bail over, this wire will be tucked on the inside, out of the way, so it won't hitch or catch anybody. And we'll do the same with this one. Just get that one nicely tucked in there too. Now you can use whichever pliers, but I quite like to use the bent nose for that. There we go. So now we can come back to designing our front wires. So as I mentioned earlier, we'll do something fancy with these top bits. So I think we just start by pulling them out. Now to get a nice even opening on the front here, I come down with my flat nose right down to the junction and give it a squeeze and pull it apart like that. Same on that side. There we go. Pop it down, and you want to have them so that you're working with the same angle. Otherwise your design won't be symmetrical, and as that's what you're going for, get it straight as you can at this stage. So this one looks to be a bit further down, so I'm just going to bring it down a bit further and just keep offering it up to your board. Sometimes you get this bit done first try. I think we're about right there. Okay, so let's come to our stone. Let's see what we might do. So we'll come down. We'll probably just curve it outwards and then come back out, I think. So you can use anything round to curve this around. Probably should have mentioned at the beginning, I tend to use a ring mandrel for that. But if you've got a wooden dowel, a chunky marker pen, something like that, I'll go for the ring mandrel, and I think we'll go. This one's a tapered one, so you can do smaller curves up to the larger ones, and say pick something, just bend this around, and keep your thumb in the same place, and you know you can go back to the right spot then. Okay, that one's going a bit more. Is that right? offer it up to the board. There, so that's looking good. Now what we need to do now is mark out where we'll make our next design maneuver. So I tend to move it down so that wherever you put your mark on here corresponds to a line on the board, which means then you can mirror it on the other side and get it exactly right. If I just move this to the centre of the screen, okay. So like this, and come to about here. So this only has to be approximate. Don't fret about getting it exactly, but if you'd like a little bit of a measurement just to see where we're at, I can do that for you. So we are at, if I can get my ruler in the right place because the setup doesn't allow too much, about 2 centimetres. So from the bottom of your binding here down to your mark, about 2 centimetres. So just play around with it. And I think what we'll do, I'll bring in the chain nose. Now these, I don't know about anybody else's, whether they're all the same. My chain nose have a wide jaw and a narrow jaw. So I'm just to zoom in and show you that. So, sorry about the wobbly. There we go. Now what I tend to do is place my jaws so that the narrow jaw is on the outside of what you're trying to bend, because that means when you are bending your wire it gives you more room on the outside to get a tighter curve, if that makes any sense. Because if this area here is full of tools that you're using, it gives you less room to maneuver your wire. So I'll put this one here. Now this is a bit short, we'll see how I get on. It's a bit hard. This is where you can bring in other pliers to help you out. So yeah, not going very well, is it? For example, I'm just going to bring these chain nose in just to help bring the wire out a little bit. Save your fingertips, people. And on this side, and again we'll just bring the wire out a little bit. Want to get it roughly the same each side. You can. There we go. Right, offer it up again. I'll keep checking as you go. Now, this side is slightly more bent, however, you won't need to worry about it because I am going to bend it back round the other way in a moment, but for the sake of me keeping on about checking everything as you go, we'll do that. And now I'm going to try and just get the tip of this and bend it around back on itself again. Like so. That. And the same with the other side. Oops. Oh look, distorted it all. There we are, people. Don't worry. You can bring it back. That's fine. Yeah, look, real time. Doesn't always go exactly how you want it, but I can see here what's happened, I think. It's got a bit more of a curve in it now, making it a little shorter. So just come in with a flat nose. Hopefully try and put the bend back in the right place again. I think we're somewhere close. Oh no, that's looking a bit wrong. Don't worry, I won't edit this out because it's good to see how to put things right again when they don't quite go to plan. So start from the very base, map it out as you go, and then put the corrections where they need to be. So there, and I think what we've got here is a bit more of a curve, a sharper bend, haven't we, there? So just try, if I can, bring that in. So there we go. I think we're getting somewhere near. Right, so let's see. Flatten that piece at the base there, I think. That's it. So retrieve my pliers from the floor. Right, to bring this in a little. I think it might be okay. Yeah, I think that'll work. Right, so the next job now will be to hammer this part of the designer out. So I tend to just go for emphasising the curves, so here and here, and then I'll do the ends. You can file these to a nice round dome at this stage, or you can hammer them out first and then file them afterwards. So I think we'll do that. I think it's a bit easier. Okay, so here we are. I have now hammered out and emphasised the flare on the curves and the tips of this. So the next job will be to bend this over, so we can start forming it over the front of our stone and creating the front. So double check, triple check, make sure you've got your cut ends now facing towards you, facing up, so that they can be bent over and hidden inside. Take your flat nose pliers, or whichever ones you're comfortable with, and you want to have them so that you can just place it at the base of the coiled bail and just give it a little push back so that you end up with the frame doing that. Okay, and then take your bail making pliers or dowel or marker pen or whatever you wish to use, and piece of wire stuck in there, another project. Right, and just roll and push. There we go. And bail over, so you start to get something looking like that. Straighten out. It will now start to look like this. Now at this stage, if you just get your pliers and just gently lift these front prongs upwards. Don't have to be exact at this point. Just give that little wire a nudge back down. This is where we are so far. And you can use either your pliers or your fingers, depending how strong you feel. Bring that down. So it will start to look something a bit like this. Okay, Right, now come in, and what we want to do now is, because the stone is slightly raised, this one hasn't too much of a dome on the top, but some of the cabochons do. They can be have quite a domed profile on the top. But we want to sort of just gently go down our detailing here and just curve it ever so slightly, sort of a little bit this way. And to do that, I just go with my flat nose and grip it sort of part way down. Just start to bend it over a little, so it looks a little bit domed like that. Okay, and do the same with the other side, part way down, sort of tilt and turn. There we go. They look roughly about the same. You can always tell if you hold your frame like that and look down, almost if you're looking at a plank of wood, to see if it's bowed. Something like that. Pop your stone in again, and it'll start to sit nicely. Right, before we do any more to the face, we want to create the back now, so we can almost start to lock the stone into place. So for this size frame, I think we'll go with the 1.7. It'll be quite chunky, but it'll be nice and solid. Now for the length that we're working with, probably, so the back will have a bit of shape as well. We may have a bit of excess, but if I chop this off and then I'll measure it for you. And this is coming in at approximately just over 18 centimetres, but I'll just straighten it out. So if we end up trimming something off, that's okay. It's better to have enough to get the back secure. And then if you are left with a decent amount of has been trimmed off, I collect little pieces like that in a little scrap box, because you never know what elements you might need for later on. So let's find approximate middle, so about 9. And for this I tend to use my chain nose pliers down to almost the widest part of the jaw, because by the time you put the wire in about there and bend the sides over, you've got to straighten it up yet, but it will give you enough to go over there really nicely. So then come in with your partners. Try and square that edge up nicely. There we go. And then with a bit of encouragement it'll fit like that. So next again, good old flat nose. Probably want to come down to, you want to grip it so that you've got about this much in the jaw of the plier. Basically the depth of here to here, and you'll see why in just a moment. So like that, and put a 90-degree bend in the wires. Nice and straight. I haven't. There we are. And before we do any more, just offer it up to the piece. And then give it a bit of encouragement. Where I might actually squish down the bail a bit harder. Just to bring it in a bit closer there. I can always adjust these front arms in a moment. There we go. So that'll bring that across there, like so. And then we can fiddle with the design on the back. Hammer it out. Won't go any further though, I'm just going to straighten this up again. If it gets a chance to get away from you, it will. Which is the best way to go, this way I think. There we are. Okay, now what we'll do, luckily with this stone it actually fills this negative space, so we don't really need to worry too much about how we're going to display this back wire down. But I like to, rather than having it going straight like this, perhaps, you know, put some curves in on the back as it comes down. So offer it up to your board, perhaps come down, and mark it because you want to keep it symmetrical. Both front and back, they both need to look nice. And keep forgetting to move this cutting mat away. It's a bit busy, isn't it? Right, let's go with chain nose pliers again and go the top of your marking point and your wires out. All skew with that. Just need to flatten that out as we go. That one's bending out a bit more. Something a bit like that. Nice there. A bit fighty today, this one. It's okay. There we go, that's about right. Now, what we'll do is we'll put a curve in the back, probably use the ring mandrel for that. But before we go any further, we'll just check angle on that is right. I think we'll be okay. Let's bring in on ring mandrel for that one. Again, you can choose any point. What you want to do is, when we do wrap it around here, don't have it any wider than the distance of here, otherwise your back piece will be sticking out the side. As long as it's just enough to cover the back of the stone to keep it in place, stop it from sliding out of your design. Something like that. And again, bring in the board. There. Okay. I mean, obviously you can consistently work on your board, but for the purpose of filming this, it can just look a little bit busy, so that's why I keep taking it in and out all the time. There we go. So then, if we pop this back onto the frame, we're going to see how it starts to look. Like this. There we go. We can bring that circle in just a little, but we can do that in a second by squeezing those two pieces together. And then I think it'll probably look quite nice if we take these and just flare them out in a curve this way. So I'll just do that right line. Use your fingernail just to guide that wire around. As you go. So it looks a bit like that. And we'll hammer that down in a moment once we've got the other side to match. Right, put it on our craft mat and make sure both sides are the same. Good. I think that looks about right. A bit more of that. Right, I'll just give that a little hammer. Go. Just to strengthen that design out a little bit. Again, now that I've hammered it, we can see it has actually distorted a little bit, quite a lot actually. And I think, looking at this, it's a good example. This side is more hammered than that, so I need to go back in and just do a little bit more work on this side. I think that will get us where we need to be. And if not, we can just manipulate it a little bit just to get it where we need it. I'm actually just going to straighten out this curve a little bit. I think it's a bit sharper than the other side. There we go. Right. Again, we'll fix this in place and get it like that. So, get this roughly where you want it on the front. Right, what we'll do is we'll work with one side first, get it secured where we need it, and then we'll mark the other side to match, and we'll know it'll be in exactly the right place. So I'm going to start with this side first. And yeah, we've ended up with quite a lot of excess here, so for this gauge wire I'll probably just wrap it around the front once, because that'll be perfectly enough for what we need. So I'm going to take off a good portion, and then we'll just start to move this first before we cut any more off. So go in with your pliers of choice and just put a little bend like this. Secure it, and we can start to see exactly how much we're going to need now. So I'm going to chop a fair bit more off of there. Come in with a flat nose. I think that'll be just enough. There we go. So just in there like that. So what we'll do now is we'll get our measuring board and our marker. And we'll mark exactly where we want the other side to be, so we can get it right. So line up your frame. And we want to line it so that this aligns with one of the lines, and then we know this be in the right place. So I'm going to aim for that spot right there, and straighten that. Slight bit of curve on the bottom. There we go. Cut off some of the excess that we don't need. go. Or trim it off, not too much. It should be just about. There we go. There we are. Just try and munch that side too, as I did chew it on the other side. It's okay, just almost burnish it off. And by that, just hold on to the wire with your plier jaws, not too tight, and just roll it over. There we go. You can just get a nice little finish on there. Just sand that off later. Offer that up to your board, and I think we're just about right there. Okay, right. Now what we'll have to do is, because we squeezed down that bail earlier, a bit further than originally was set up, we'll just have to bring these top wires back up again to allow the stone to go underneath. So very gently just bring them back up. There we go. Use those because they're a bit easier. Now in doing that, they have rotated inwards a little bit. Like I'm able to show you up there, can you see? So they're on a bit of an angle. So I'll just get my pliers and just tease them back out this way. And then they will sit better on the stone. There we go. I'll show you that way. This is better that way. So now we'll just pop our stone in. So if we go to the back, you can see it's nicely secure. Not going to come out of there. And then it means we can gently pop our stone in there. However, I just slightly overdone that a little bit. Just bring them back down again. Tad. Make sure your stone's up the correct way. If you flash, if you're using MAB, there we are. That's better. So that's almost holding itself in there now. So starting to get a little bit of structure. Having that margin around the outside of the frame has given enough room for these back wires to come round and leave a nice space here. That shows on there for you. So the next step now will be to look at what we've got and see what we might add next. Okay, so we're on to the next step and we need to decide how we're going to add the next element. So I'm thinking we could take our neck size gauge down, which is the 1.6mm, and we need to create a component that will probably sit on top of the base frame and sit underneath our arms and come out, maybe flare at the top. And we could even shape the bottom of that into a nice point to give it a little bit more of a design feature. And then onto that we could weave another element that comes along here. So what we'll do is we'll take the 1.6 first, and we'll take a length, let's say, again we'll work with something like that. I'll chop that off and give that a measure for you. And this I have taken about 16 centimetres. I'll just straighten that out so that we can work with it. You may or may not in the background be able to hear some little tweety birds. I've got some lovely little house sparrows that have come back to nest every year in the roof of my little studio here. I can usually hear them scrabbling about, chattering. Yeah, it's really nice. Especially when the weather's bad outside, it's nice to know they've got somewhere to hide and cuddle up. Anyway, so here we are, 16, and we'll go half, so we go down to 8. Just measure that. And we'll start off by putting a bend in the middle, and go back to straightening out the side that wasn't held. So we'll curve this around our stone. Now at this stage, you don't have to, this is where you can start adding a bit more depth to your piece and design flair, if you like. You don't have to stick to the main frame here. We could start to deviate and bring some features out on the side, which will give it a little bit more width, a bit more dimension. So I think we'll go for that. So what we'll do is perhaps we'll keep this nice and wide rather than, as we bend it, hugging it to the stone. So I'll take the ring mandrel and I offer this up. Yeah, the widest part of that is the width of the stone and the frame as it is. So we'll go for the very biggest part at the bottom. Start to encourage this around. Okay, the other side needs a bit more bend. Go. And don't forget again, as we hammer it, it will also stretch it and flare it out a bit more. Take it out here, and I think we'll mark a point in here and even perhaps mirror a bit of this curve here and bring it out and around again. So choose a point, and I think we will go just above the junction of this curve that we've already got, and we'll probably choose about there. And again, that can be, doesn't have to be too precise. Bring in your mat, line it up, and then make sure that the mark that we've just made sits on one of the lines on the mat. So that means we can mirror it and get it exactly the same on the other side. And then for this, I will take the chain nose again, and we'll be using the smaller jaw on the outside. Bend this out, both sides, like that. Give it a squash, keep it nice and flat. Check it as you go. Yep. And then we'll put a nice little bend in here, and then flip the top out. So I think because it's quite a small bend, we'll actually use our bail making pliers for that, and I'll probably use the smallest part of the jaw. So get right into that joint and bend that around so it looks like that. Do the same on the other side. Bit tricky there, got the wire in the way now. I've gone the wrong side, haven't I? That's a bit daft. Yeah. Around there like that. Because I just made a little mistake there, I do need to just straighten that out. Easily done. There we go. Yeah, right. Let's offer it up to the board. See what adjustments we need to make. This one needs to come down a little bit more. Okay, and then what we will do then, we'll just flare these wires out at the top. So they need to flare out just at the top of the curve. So I think we'll go with the bail making pliers again, and we'll just place it so the jaw, if you can see that, is just there at the top. Oh no, that's the wrong way around. My apologies. At the top, just like that. And it means we can bend the wire back against that on there. Do the same on this side. Bend the wire that way. A bit further that side. There we go. Do the offering. Just straighten this one out a little bit, gone a bit too far with that one. It's okay. Right. Yeah. Because don't forget, we don't need all of this length here, so we're going to be trimming it back here anyway, so I think that will look okay. Right, what I need to do now is, once again, we'll just exaggerate the flares and hammer out those parts. I think I'll also just trim those top wires now. We want those to sit roughly about here, because by the time they've been hammered out they'll stretch, and then we'll file them back a little bit. So to make sure we cut the other side the same. Get that lined up, and it almost comes down with that piece there, so it's just slightly off to one side. There, here we are. But again, when we come to filing that, we can get that exactly right. Just trim that one and that one. There we go, and it will sit once it's been hammered. Get it. Actually, I'll show you in a minute once I've hammered it, because I don't want to distort it too much before it's been work hardened. Keep its shape. So I'll just hammer this, and I'll be back with you in just a sec. Hi, so I'm back. I've prepared this next element. I have gone ahead and hammered out the flares, and done the same for the top, and filed those off to a nice rounded edge. So what we're hoping is that we'll put this element onto here. Just need a gentle encouragement without distorting it too much, just to get it into place. There we go. And it will start to sit like this. And then the next task will be to get it to stay into place. So I didn't end up with the gauge of wire at the bottom as I was planning to hammer and file out a point, so we'll do that under the piece sometime. I think for today's work we will just jiggle with it and get it to stay where it needs to go. Excuse me. I think it might be quite nice now, perhaps, to use one of our 0.7 22 gauge wires and do a nice weave along here, which means then we can get some decorative part of the design into the front here. It can attach to our base wire, and then we can then use those to secure onto the main frame underneath and get the whole piece locking together and keeping the stone in place. And as we do so, we'll go along and just keep everything all lined up, symmetrical, just tweak it where it needs to be tweaked. So let's get some of the 0.7. So I'm thinking what we'll do is maybe use 4 strands. So I will take roughly this here, and this measures for you about 17 centimeters. So if we grab 4 of those, we'll be able to weave something pretty into the front and use it to secure our stone at the same time. 1, 2, 3, and 1 more, 4. There we go. So we've got 4 of those. Now, as these are quite a thin gauge, you can generally just straighten these out with your fingers. There's one that's a bit wonkier than the rest. It won't matter too much because we will be bending it anyway. Now, some people don't mind weaving straight onto the wire like this. Other people might make use of a ring holding tool, which can be really helpful if you've got quite a long piece to weave. And I will just show you what one of those look like. So I'm not going to use one for today, but they can be wooden or plastic. This is my one. Really handy. Just take your wedge out. You can use either end. And what you would do, for example, is just secure your wires into the end and then pop your wedge back in there, and it holds onto your wires so you don't have to when you're weaving. Quite handy. So I should be alright without one of those today. My hands are not feeling too tired. So got 0.7. And we'll use the thinner gauge for the weaving, the 0.3 28 gauge. Takes a little bit longer to work your design up, but personally prefer the results at the end. So I think what we'll do, grab your wires, and we only really want a portion that's going to probably cover this section here of the design. So it's not going to need to be much. It's probably only going to need to be about 4 or 5 centimeters worth of weaving. So, and you've probably seen before that I like to weave my weaving wire onto these little bobbins. Really great for keeping everything tidy, stopping your wire from thrashing around and getting knotted up. Because it means this can turn as your wire starts to coil with your weaving, unlike the spools, and that's when you start to get your knots and everything creeping in. Okay, so what we'll do first is we will just approximately go to the middle of these weaving base wires and just bend them in half. Roughly sit like that, okay, and then slide them down on top of each other like this, and then that means that as we weave around the right angle almost there, that the design of the weave will sit nicely and it won't create a wall, it will sit nice and flat. So we'll start weaving to the left. So I said approximately 4 to 5 centimeters. We just hold it up. We'll start about here somewhere. So let's get our 0.3 28 gauge wire. It'll probably be easier. I try to do them all in one go, but if we just take one of the wires and bind on 3 times. So 1, 2 and 3. Clear that there. Introduce second wire. Snuggle it down into place. And then we'll go around these twice. And don't cinch them down too tightly, otherwise it will pull your wires together, your base wires together too tightly, and you won't be able to get the wires through on the next turn. Then we'll introduce the third wire. It's a little bit fiddly, all of this. It'll look like it's falling apart, but it'll come together. And now we will go around all of the wires twice. 1, 2. Give it a little squeeze. Shimmy it up. Then we'll introduce our final base wire. Go. Just try and shuffle them about. There we go. And then we'll go around again all of these twice. And just lay it over. And then we'll do the reverse, coming back down the other side. So, a little squash, shimmy them up. So we'll come from the bottom, and then we'll go over the first 3 base wires now. So find your way in through the top there. Do that twice. Yeah. Shimmy it. And then down over the next 2. Twice. Give that a little squeeze. Shimmy it up. There it goes. Off that up to the piece. We're about on track there. Could probably just push the whole thing up just a little bit. Oops. There we go. Make sure we've not gone too far. That looks good. Okay. I'm just going to make sure my even wire doesn't get tangled up here. Just turn my little spool round. There we go. So, put that back into place. Okay. Now I think we'll go around the base wire probably 4 times. Identify that one. There we go. So 1, 2, 3 and 4. That a little squeeze and shimmy it up. And so what that has resulted in is a nice little, the camera's going to focus for us there. I'll try and zoom in for you instead. Okay, there we go. So that's resulted in a nice little triangle weave. There we go. And we'll just repeat that design as we go along. So I'll go ahead and weave that, and I will be back in a sec once I've reached the centre point here for you. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've woven down to the centre point, and I'll just zoom in on what we've done here. Oh, that didn't work, apologies folks. There we go. Okay, so I'll come down to the middle. Now this may vary ever so slightly on how you do it. I ended up doing 9 rotations down to the very centre. Well, it was 8 and then 1, and then I've gone 8 up the other side. So what we'll do now is we'll just mirror the 3 triangles that we've got here up this other side. So it'll be to take the weaving wire, do 2 rotations around the bottom 2, 2 rotations around the bottom 3, 2 rotations around all 4, and then mirror that, come down to the side, and then finish that all the way up until the end. So rather than sit and bore you while I do that and get all tangled up, I will just finish that off, and I'll be back, and then hopefully you would have done the same. So here's the finished weave, and we've come down this side, up this side. So the next puzzle piece is to try and get this incorporated onto our element here and all attached to the frame. So I had a little think, and I think we could use these 2 little tails either side we've got to attach it to this piece. So I'm just going to make sure the tail this side just pops down through the back. So it's still got 3 rotations down the mirror as the other side. There we go, so the 2 tails are sticking out the back. We've got 4 base wires here, push that to one side, and I was thinking we'll trim this one shorter, and then we'll bend it down, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So if I can just go a bit closer, here we go. So take your pliers and hold it in line with those last 3 weaves straight up there. Just a little smidge more. We'll just bend this top wire at a right angle straight down, like this. So basically it looks like that. Okay, we'll do the same other side. Just go in line with the last 3 weaves. Just don't break it off. There, bend this top inside wire down. So there we go, so at a right angle inside. We'll have our 2 tails down there, and so if we take this piece off just for a moment, gently, so that we don't distort it. There we go, you don't need that for a sec. So just double check something more. Actually, that's going to be on there. Doesn't really matter. So line up the base of this here, get your 2 tails on the inside so that it sits not like that. I think it'll work if we put all of the tails and all the weaves on the inside of this element. Tricky. There's always one that tries to stick out. Let's just grab hold of that, post it through. There we go. So effectively we have the base of the woven piece sitting at, if you like, the apex of that element that we made, holding it in place, and just position it so that we've got a little gap here showing on both sides, and it means that we can now weave this tail around and secure it into position. So it will be a bit fiddly, be okay. And I find it easier to use bent nose pliers for this. So we have our tail coming out the back. Slowly, let's take it round through there. Just loosely pop it into place for a second, because we can tighten it all up once we've got the other side secure as well. there, just push it up a little bit. Double check your other side. Yeah, it's still looking like it's in the right place. So we'll go for a second turn around into that little space we made. Pull down through, cinch up. So that's 2 rotations. We'll just do the same on the other side. Probably easier to turn your work. There we go. Grab the little tail. There he is. Bring that around, down through the gap. Secure it into position. It's just slid up a little bit there. There we go. Tighten it down without wiggling it too much, otherwise it will work hard and then snap off. And that would be a nuisance. It would be okay, you could get around it and fix it, but it would be a nuisance. Cinch that up, and I think we'll go for a third turn as we've got enough of the tail. Okay, there we go. So we've got 3 rotations around there. Now, if you had already taken this tail off, don't despair. You could just slide this part of the design down a little bit further, reattach another tail on this base wire, bind it round 3 or 4 times, and then attach it to this element. So it'd be absolutely okay, don't worry. There's always a way around it. It's just slightly different. We'll just do this one through a third rotation around, so it's secure and mirrors the other side. Here we go. And then just give those a little squeeze with your pliers. Cinch it down. And before you make the final trim, just have a little look, make sure you're happy. It looks okay to me. Now these are a bit short. Normally I like to wiggle them off, but I haven't got much to get a hold of there, so I'm just going to go in with my flush cutters and just nip those off. Make sure the pointy end is secure. There we go, right, so that's that bit done. There we go, so that's now tied into place. Now we just need to shorten these prongs, because all they need to do is just be long enough just to go and wrap a couple of times around here. So I think if we take a chunk like that off, that'll still give us plenty. Now just to offer it up and see what it will look like, I'm hoping these will go down through here like so. That's right. These arms will go underneath the bell arms, but just to get an idea of what we're looking at. Looks like that so far. Now before I put all that back together, we'd like to do something with these wires here. So I was thinking we'll just gently and slowly just follow the curve of this element that we've got. Just take your time with it. If you even want to do one wire at a time, that works also. Just to follow the path. That piece. So it's starting to look like that. This might be a little tricky, just sort of overbend it a little bit. Hold on to your base wires with your thumb, and then just over exaggerate that curve, and then just tease it back into place. Something like that. Now, to decide what we're going to do next. I was wondering whether to take some weaving wire and perhaps do a couple of rotations and secure it onto here. Let's see what it might look like. So it'll be under there. Once this is in place, we will then have 3 wires with something that needs something doing with them. So perhaps we could bind the bottom 2 onto here, and then we'll trim the innermost wire a little bit, feed it down through like we have with this one, and just tie it onto our base here. Otherwise we're going to have too many to try and do something with at the top. So we'll take the inside one down through, secure it onto the frame, and then the remaining 2 that we have, I think we'll just take up under the stone, come up through here, and we'll get to that bit and I'll show you in detail, and we'll bind it off there. So let's just continue to mirror the other side. So, well, actually it might be easier to finish working off on this side first, otherwise we're going to have crisscross wires going everywhere. So for this, as we're going to tie them to the base, we'll take a bit more of our 0.3 28 gauge wire. I'm not going to need very much, so I'll just take a short length straight off the reel. It's this much, but I will just measure it. I don't think we need all of this at all, but we've got, again, the lucky 17 it seems today. 17 centimetres of that. Now I think we start by binding onto the thick piece here. So we'll go 1, 2 and 3. I'll just give you a close-up of that. Why is it the technology never plays? Here we go. So I bound 3 times onto the base frame. I will now just go up and we'll go onto the 2 wires like so. Just keep it all cinched up nicely. Don't bind it on too tightly, otherwise it will fall behind. So we've gone twice over the two wires there. I think we'll come up between the element and those 2 wires, go around those 2 inner wires, up between again, around those 2, up between and around those 2. Get an idea of what that looks like by giving it all a little squash, pushing it all together. There we are, this is what we have so far. Now I think we'll bring it back down onto this base frame again. 2 times, 3 times. A little squash and a cinch. And around all 3. And then finish off on the base 3 times. Give it a little squeeze again. Whoops, push it all together. Cinch it all up nicely. There we go. Just need to get rid of this tail. So to do that, I'll just hopefully be able to wiggle it off. And the same on the back. Go. And then we'll just take the inner two and just follow around and just offer it up to our piece again. See if it will make sure it's going where we want it to go. And again, don't forget this will sit underneath that top arm. Yeah, I think that will work okay. Right. So, if we just take whichever pliers you prefer, and I'm going to hold it probably just in from the final weaves at the top here in line, and just use that to bend down that innermost wire at that point. Might come from this side actually, doesn't twist on us. There we go. Hold it in place, that's where we want it. There we go. So it'll start to get a bit tricky. We'll thread all of these through. We'll do the same on the other side. And it'll sit underneath the arm at the top. This top wire here will come and bind around the frame for us. And it's just holding that element in place. So I will just mirror and do the same on the other side, and I'll meet you back here. So here we go, here is the finished element. It's all bound on, mirrored as on either side. Now I've popped the stone out of our frame, just put that over to the side for a minute. Now, fair warning, had a little play, getting this into place is a little bit on the tricky side, probably not the best design for a tutorial, but it is doable, so follow along the best as you can. If you find this is a bit too tricky to do, you can always alter this design with these wires a little bit so you haven't got quite so many to feed through onto the base, and that will help. But take the stone out. Excuse me. On the back of this now you should have the two prongs which came down from this top piece here, and the two prongs which came down from the weave at the bottom. Take your frame. You want to, the two bottom prongs need to go down through in between this little gap here, and the two upper prongs need to go on the outside of these arms but down into the frame in this space here, and then into the void in the middle. It will seem impossible, but with a little bit of persuasion it will go. So pop your two prongs into the bottom spaces first, and they will try and flick out. Take one prong of the uppers and pop it in that space there, and the same with the other side, and just tease it round. This will distort a little bit, don't worry, you can tweak that and put that back in a moment. Give it a little encouragement to go down through. Now we also need these top two wires on either side to go underneath the bail arms that we made earlier. So grab that and just place that under there, like so. And the same with this side. Oops, I'll say it does get tricky. pop it underneath that side. Now as we tease this down, we need this to go under that top arm, and the same on this side, so just gently, it's gotten stuck between those two, tease it back, pop it underneath, and make sure, like this one hasn't done, and it doesn't go down through the back, and then just jiggle it up into place very gently, and that should be about right. Now these bottom prongs here would have probably bent, so just pull them back down that way, and then if we turn it over on the back, these upper two have probably crossed over, so you just want to put them back on their right sides like that. Okay, now take your time with that, because like I say, it probably isn't the best design to put into a tutorial, which I've now realised. It is absolutely doable. You may find, like I've got here, that this little back piece has crept where we don't want it. So just encourage it through like so. There we go. And it will roughly be in the right place. It's probably got a little bit chewed up as you've put it through. Just play about with it, spend some time getting it in the right place, and it will go. There we are. Now take the stone, make sure you've got your angle of flash right, and just very gently pop it underneath your weave. Slide it back up into the design. These two naughty wires here, push them up through the front. Pop it into your design, a nice little click. There we go. Gently pop these two wires back underneath the arms if they've been naughty like this one. Go, that's that side. Do the same with this side. Pop it underneath that arm. The arm needs a little lift. There we go. Whoops. Line it all up. Squidge into place. Right, now as you can see, these two top wires have gotten a little bit upset, out of place. So all we really got to do is just tinker with those for a bit and get them back into position. If they've folded a bit, just give them a little squeeze with your pliers. I don't want to cut out sometimes when things don't go to plan, because it doesn't always go to plan. So I need to show you how to fix it. This one has gotten quite out of place. There we are. Just gently tease it back how you want it. There as well. Sorry, I'm getting a bit out of shot there. Follow that curve of the base wires below. I think I'm going to use my flat nose because it's got quite a sharp turn there that's appeared. Push it back from the back a little so you get hold of it. Just gently start working that and put that curve back where you want it. Yeah, that wasn't great, but there we are. Never mind. think I'll also just flatten it from underneath because it's got a little bit chewed up. That's not bad. And then just bend it at the point where it needs to be bent. So I grab hold of it there. I think the best way to do that, and just give a little jiggle, pull it down. There we go. It's looking pretty good. Okay. It turned out quite nicely. Right. There. So, this is what we have so far. So we'll bind these top two off on the top and then the 4 wires on the back. So we'll start with the bottom ones. Push your design down from the front gently, hold it at the back. And we'll just take this bottom prong and we'll just trim it down a little bit. Quite a lot to work with there. Now we have got the wire comes out through the frame here at the back. We're going to wind it around, pop it through this gap here, feed it back through. So pop a little curve on the end of your wire like that, and that will help it come through the frame. Feed it through that gap. Like so. Okay, see that there? It's not quite enough to get hold of, just tease it through. Gently work it. So that side done. I won't trim it just yet, we'll get the other side done. Flip it over, make sure things are lined up and central. And there we go. Be a bit forceful with it if you have to. Pick up your second prong, we'll just trim it down a little. And note that we round it round the upper side of the leg with this one. So again, put your curve in the end of the wire, like so. Feed it through. Quite got in the right place there, there we go. Hold of it. Right. Now have a quick look at the front. This one's sitting a little bit higher than the other side, so we'll just pull that down a little just so it matches. I don't know about you, I tend to pick up on little bits like that. Probably gone a little bit too far now, so we'll just get the other side to match. Somewhere near. That's better. And then we will just trim this so we can tuck it up in around, pop a little curve on the end again. Tease that round so it's tucked up out of the way. That's one side done. We'll do the same with this side. I may take a little bit more off there in a sec. There we go. Just put a little curve on the top so that when you tuck it away, carefully. These prongs move. And get it in that little space. I might actually just take a little bit more off of there. It's not quite sitting where I want it to. So to do that, just pull it back out. There we go. Tiniest bit more off the end. And in it goes. Tucked away under the weave. Done. Right, now we've got to work on the top wires. Just make sure everything's sitting where you want it. Again, just make sure that frame is in the centre. I may even grab a bead later and just weave it down through just to get that to stop shifting around. Okay, so now we've got our top wires to deal with. So we've got 1, 2, effectively 3, 4, 5 and 6. So let's get these ones sorted next, I think, because they're being a bit troublesome, aren't they? It'd be quite nice to keep them so that they're raised and flush with the frame at the top here so that we can still see them. That would be nice. So when we tie them off, we won't pull them down too tight onto the back. So I think the best place, let's have a quick look, to tie those off onto will be around these arms that come down at the back, because there's a tiny little space there. If we get our pliers now either side and just give it a little squeeze inwards like that, just gives a little space to pop those in. So yeah, little curve on the end like so. And as I said in my previous video, you know, sometimes these things don't quite go to plan, and you can adjust it as you go. Pop the wires somewhere else, you know. In the day, as long as the piece ends up pretty, no sharp bits on it, that's the end goal. There we go, so I've kept it level with the top and taken it around here. And I'll just trim that a bit more. So I've got enough just to put a little curve on the end. And with some luck, be able to cinch it into that little gap. There we go. And I'll just do a close up in a second and show you where that one's disappeared. Squeeze them together so they look nice. There we go. So they've gone around here twice and tucked in nicely out of the way, so there's no sharp bits. Still keeping the detail here. So we'll just go for doing that on the other side, hopefully. I think that's just to tease up a little higher there. Yep, that should work. I'm just going to put my bend. button around there. Sometimes you can get one side done, you come to do the second and it won't play and you're like, no, don't do that. So just work it through gently, gently, gently to tighten down. This one is trying to disappear, so we'll just tease it back up again. Yeah, caught you. And then we'll just trim this. Tuck it back into that little space like we did on the other side. Turn this over. Aim for that little spot. Just in there. Little squeeze. It doesn't have to be done in one pinch of the pliers, just rotate it and get it where you need it. There we go. Nicely tucked away. Phew! Okay. We'll just tease that one back out again because it is trying to disappear on us. So, that's what we're looking like so far. Just try and get that. There we are. There we go. So now it just leaves us with these top two here to do something with. Now these are too thin a gauge to hammer out, I think, to match this detail up here. They end up getting snagging on clothing and not working out very well at all, so we won't hammer them. Just make sure that's where it needs to be. Looking at this, I think they would go quite nicely in and around into this little space that we've got here. You should have the same on your piece. You better just wrap them into here. Got that same space both sides. So we'll make use of that, I think. Okay. So just bend them around. It's probably easier if we do one at a time. I'll go for what would be the lower one first. Come through that gap. Pop that on the other side. And we want to put it only tight enough so that we don't lose that curve, hopefully on the top. There we go, we'll get that back if we cinch it from both sides. Like this. And then we'll take that second one through. There it goes. There we go. And I think what we'll do is we'll just trim those right down so that we can just tuck them into that little space in there. So get in there with your flush cutters. Oops. Squeaky flush cutters. There we are. And we chain those and just cinch each one down. Then bring these back up again. And that should cover those up nicely. Yeah. Works quite well. Oh, I'm off screen. I do apologise. Dear. So this is what we have now. Tuck those two little tails underneath. And I will do the same for the other side. So we'll go with the bottom one first. Around through this gap. Make sure it comes out in the right place. There it is. Fiddly. There we go, and then we'll put the second one in. Pop up, there it is. A little squeeze from the front. So that's the tighten that one up a little bit more. Then we'll get right in with our flush cutters as before. Trim those off. Just cinch the ends down. There we go. Oopsie. Oh, sorry if you were really concentrating and I made you jump. Gosh. And we just need to get these in and over just to hide those away. Almost. There we go. Sometimes it helps if you can sort of wedge one jaw of the pliers somewhere and then just almost lever it. This side. There we go, I think that's just about right. So we've tucked those wires away at the top. And this is where we are. Teasing that bottom there, make sure it's where we want it. So now we've just got to think what else we might like to add. I think it would be quite good to add something in here around the top. And yeah, maybe some beads if you've got some to hand, but I don't think they'll be design failure if you don't have any. Okay, I'll have a quick think and then I'll meet you back in a moment. Okay, so I think what we'll do now is we'll take a piece of our 1mm 18 gauge wire and we'll just pop a detail that will sit slightly on the bail, come down around the outside, pop down through this little gap here and fasten off onto the frame. And that'll finish it off quite nicely. We may add a bead or two on afterwards, but we'll see how it goes. So let's just grab a piece of 1mm 18 gauge. Now I've just randomly cut a piece, but this one is 15 centimetres. So find roughly the centre of that and bend it in half, and I'll just cinch that together. Carefully like that. Now I'm just going to hammer the end of that just to flatten it out and give it some detail. So we've now got a nice flat piece on there. So I'm thinking this can basically sit on the bail like this, and then we'll curve it around the outside and pop it down through. So we take our wire and just very carefully start to tease a curve, and before we go too far onto the other side, just see if we're in about roughly the right position. So it needs to go just a little higher. So you can just come up a little higher like so. There we go, that'll be in about the right place. So I'll do the same on the other side. So that's what we have. Side. There we go. So I'll sit on here like this. And then I think I'll use the ring mandrel. We'll just bend it so we get this curve. I don't think I'll hammer this element. Somewhere near. That's about right. So it will start to look a bit like this. Just open up a little wider. I'll just mark with our Sharpie pen where we want the next curve, which will be about there. Bring our trusty craft board. And match the other side. Quick little nudge. There we go. And you want that mark on one of these horizontal lines again. There we go. Now we're getting it the same both sides that way. Check. Yep. And I'll use my bail making pliers to create that curve. So around like that. Now if it twists backwards like that, don't worry, just give it a little squeeze and bring it back up again. Do the same on the other side. Yeah. hopefully this will start to, there we go, fit in that little space like so. Now all we need to do is just curve this wire down, make it plop into that space there. So should we do it freehand? Let's see what we end up with. Get it somewhere near right. Yeah, that's not bad. Bring it a little sharper, I think. Just a tad. Yeah. Sharper like that. Offer it up again. I think that'll be about right. So now we just got to do the same with the other side. There's a little bit of a curve, I think. Yeah. And we'll take, actually no, I'll lay it that way, it'll be a bit easier. Our permanent marker, and then we'll roughly mark where we want it to go down through the frame. And we've already got binding here, so we want it to sit, yeah, about there. Bring in the nut. There we go. So with that, we'll just take our pliers, go for the one that's underneath first, put a 90-degree bend on there, same with this side. There we go, so you end up with that. Put those prongs down into that little space. Just mould the element. There we go. And then we can secure that down with a bead on the top in a moment. There we go. I'll just tie that down and then we'll have a close up and have a little look at that in a minute. So, whilst pretending we're an octopus and you've got many hands spare, hold the top part against the bail. Now we just need to fasten this off onto our frame on the back. So take your prong, put the curve on it like so, if you can see, there we go. And feed that through your frame at the back. Just a little at a time, get it to come through. If it's not quite bent around enough, just tease it back out. A bit more of a curve on there, like that. And out it comes. Try not to chew your wire up too much, but you can sand it off if it gets a little bit dented. I mainly try to avoid it just so I'm not creating extra work for myself, but sometimes it can't be helped. There we go. gently pull that through. We just check the front, make sure we're happy. Yep. Make sure that stays aligned in the centre, and we'll do the same on the other side. Put a nice tight curve on this. It takes a bit of encouragement to get this one through. One went through easier. Strange. Okay, check the front again. Any chance it will have to get skew with? It will. I felt that move before I even tried to do any more. There. Just give it a little bit of encouragement to come through. The same height if you can. There we go. Now it probably doesn't look a lot of detail at the moment, because as I've said before, when you get lots and lots of wires it just looks like a tangled mess really, to be honest. But once you oxidize and polish it and you get the relief, contours and textures showing through, it makes all of the difference. So just have a little bit of faith. Keep on piling those wires up. Now what we need to do is just tuck this one away at the end here. So again, put a nice little curve on the end. Here's a little cinch. You swine. Times have I bent wires and they go beautifully, and you try to show other people and you just won't do it. Right, this one trim down again, perhaps a little shorter. Nice little curve on. Cinch it into place. A little check on the front, rejig if you need to, and there we go. Woo! That will look quite nice, and I've got some nice little beads which I'll put on the top here, so apologies for not showing that at the beginning, but I wasn't actually planning on using any, but hey ho. Right, before we put the bead on, we had a little issue with this moving around earlier, so we'll take some, in this instance, 0.4 26 gauge. It's a little bit tougher just for binding things down and keeping things secure. So I won't bother measuring this, but it'll be just a short length like so. And having a look at this, I'm just going to pop it through the base of our weave here. There is a tiny, tiny little gap at the bottom. Let's see if I can show you. Just through the weave here, and it will go through and come nicely through onto the frame at the back. So we'll just poke one end through first, and through it comes. Slightly longer length through, there we go. And I think we'll just wind it round through onto the bottom here. So take your tail, hopefully be able to pop it through here somewhere. Maybe a little bit fiddly. You'll come. And I'll do that about 3 turns. Push with your index finger on this side just to encourage it through. This one's deciding to twist. If it does that, pull it back and try again. Twice, and then we'll go through the 3rd time. Switch those together to keep looking tidy. Turn over, and then this time we will go through between the weave feature and the detailing piece through to the frame at the back, and as you pull it down, just try to make it sit between one of these weaves on the front just so it blends in nicely. Vanishes like that, and then you won't really see it. And then we'll do the same this side. Let's get that tail through there. You could actually get hold of it like that rather than trying to fight with threading it. There we go. That's got hold of it now, so you know your stone's not going to come out. Do that 2 more times. And once more. Go. Stitch that together like last time. Hopefully get this to come off. There we go, one side. Little wiggle, and the second side. And that's nicely bound down into place. There we go, looking okay, nice and strong. Stones held at the bottom and the sides. Now I do need a bit more, need something just to hold the stone in at the top there. It's not going to shift, but if you want to be extra sure, just make sure it's not gone skew as well. We've got a little bit of room here to pop something in the top. And I think you could maybe just get a piece of 1mm and hammer a little detail in there just to keep it tidy and come through the back here and tie off onto those. So for that we'll get another very short piece of 22 gauge. It'll be just enough to make a little prong. Got got a little short length here. This is 10 centimeters. Bend that roughly in half. Really approximate, doesn't matter. And we'll just hammer the end of that just to give it some strength. There we are, just like that. And I'll just bend the top over like so. Just creates this little triangle. Make sure it sits flat. And what we'll do is we'll just somewhere find a little gap. Yours may vary a little bit, but there will be a little space if you look down between your stone and your features here where you'll be able to get this 0.7. I went, excuse me, 4.7 because I think 1mm would struggle to get through there. So we've got some 0.7 through there already, so I reckon we could get a bit more in there. That's one side, just give it a little wiggle. And the other side. A little wiggle, there we are. It'll come through nicely. And then pull it from the back. See that? And push. There we are. Level it up where you want it. There we go. And then I think we can just secure it off on the back. And that will lock that stone into place then. And there'll be no risk of it coming out. I think we'll just go around this back wire again because there is a little space here where we bound off before. There you go. To sit nicely. Again, if it tries to go a bit wonky on you, catch it now. Just pull that through a bit tighter, I think. Same with this one. See? There we go. Looking okay. Sorry if I was getting a bit enthusiastic with it there and not showing you. I'll just trim that down and tuck it away in the back. There we are. Make sure it does go in so it's not going to catch anybody. Just use your pliers and just rotate around. Get it tucked in out of the way. Same with this side. in and around. There we go. Tucked away. Okay, there we are. So we've got our stone locked in from the front on top and bottom and the sides. Okay, so as a last minute decision, I decided to pop this little bicone copper bead onto a piece just up here, just to kind of fill in that gap and hold down this last piece we popped on. You don't have to. You could use round beads, oval beads, square beads, gemstone beads, anything really. Excuse me. So I think once this sits on there, that will look okay. So bend that in half. Now the placement of this doesn't have to be exactly what I'm doing here. If you're going to pop a bead on, just find anywhere. So I'm going to go down through this little gap and get my wire convinced to go through. And the same this side. Pull that through to the back. So I've just got it to sit on there first off. Then I'm going to bring these back up around and in underneath this piece. Let's try and get it down there. There we go, and then we can tie around this then. I'll get it secured down and looking good. So just do the same on this side. Just encourage that to straighten up. And then try and copy the same that side, bring it up underneath. In the same position. Okay. Wrap it underneath and around. And then I think we'll just bind it off on this wire about 4 times, so that's 2, 3, and 4, and there we go. Do the same this side, so we've done 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure they sit the same on both sides. Yeah, I think that'll work. Keeps this piece secure. Adds a bead. Lovely, lovely. Wiggle off those tails. Up. And sitting in the right place. Tidy up your beads, centralise everything. Done. So all that's left to do now is oxidise and polish. So I will nip off and do that. Bring you back the finished piece so you can see the difference between the what I call the pile of wires now and hopefully looking better. I'll pop a picture just here in a second for comparison of before and after. And yeah, thanks for watching. Apologies for this design being a little bit trickier than I expected. Hopefully you'll manage with it. If not, maybe be able to adapt as you go along. Oh, I think someone's delivering a bin for me. I'll be back in a sec, one moment. Apologies there, to take a little break. I had a delivery. So yes, we'll oxidise and polish, show you before and after. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe, that'd be much appreciated. Again, sorry it was a little bit fiddly, I didn't intend it to get quite like that. Hopefully the next one will be slightly easier. Thanks again and see you soon. Bye.